think it's really important for all of us to remember that there are not small swaths of America where the experience is not the experience of Sacramento or Washington, D.C. or New York or South Florida. When I think about this, I think about Texas in particular, right? So Texas's coronavirus cases are really quite focused around their urban population centers. And I think it's one of the reasons that Governor Abbott has held off on issuing the stay-at-home order across the entire state, because huge parts of Texas are relatively unaffected by this. So when we talk about how voters feel this, I think voters in different places are going to feel it differently.
Totally. Every state is, dealing with a slightly, different situation than the one that's maybe next door to it. And that's why you've seen, I think, such varying reactions from different types of governors, regardless of political party, regardless of their relationship to Trump. And, kind of to your original question, Kristin, I think, maybe one kind of consistent through line we can draw with, the governors who are, looking pretty good coming out of a lot of it is that they didn't have a very close relationship to Trump at the beginning of this. So they didn't feel like they had to wait for the White House, or they had to take their cues from the White House, or didn't want to, make it look like they were breaking with the White House. They just said, they can do whatever they want to do in Washington, D.C. I'm going to do what's right for, the constituents in my state. And it's been a wide range of states from a political standpoint. You have kind of your traditional blue state governors in Washington State, New York, California that have been ahead of the curve. But you've also had Republican governors in states like Maryland with Larry Hogan, Ohio, Mike DeWine, that also haven't been afraid to break with Trump on this and sort of get ahead of the curve on this early. And then the ones that did sort of have to wait and take their cues from Trump because, again, they're worried about the political ramifications in states like Florida, in Georgia, in Texas. We didn't see them until this week start to issue their statewide stay-at-home orders because, one, obviously the situation is just getting so out of hand in some of these states between the number of cases, the unemployment numbers in these states. And I think, Trump finally sort of gave them an opening this week, with some of his remarks at his daily press conferences, sort of acknowledging the severity of this situation. But it still is really at this point the governors who are really driving the response to this. And that's, something we had talked about a couple of weeks ago on this podcast. And I think, remains true today that they, a lot of these governors are still a step or two ahead of Trump and a lot of his sort of allied governors around the country on this.
The situation that unfolded this week in Florida was, I think, one of a kind, right? I think it speaks to what Governor Santis believes his relationship is with the president, his desire to have the president understand that he's going to do what the president tells him to do, because he was under significant pressure for quite a long time from officials of both parties throughout the state of Florida to take the step to lock down the state. And he wouldn't do it until he got the call from the president. It's a very interesting thing that is, I think, peculiar and particular to the relationship between DeSantis and Trump.
Let me just say, in terms of why that's important, and I actually think it goes back to why it's important how you run your race for election to begin with, right? Because Ron DeSantis was the prime example of every Republican running in the Trump era in 2018. His strategy was making it clear to everyone that he was an ally of Donald Trump. He had a very competitive Republican primary, and their entire strategy was, we're an ally of Trump, we're here to support the president, we embrace the president's worldview, and it worked. Right? His strategy was not to go barnstorming, campaigning across the state. It was to get in a Fox News green room and to try to communicate directly and build a bridge directly to the president, Donald Trump. Well, and that was his entire campaign strategy. And I don't think it should surprise anyone then. And it's why it's important to note how people get to the office. The politics that dictated his primary strategy, his general election strategy, then dictate how he serves in office, right? He understands that this is core to his political identity. It's core to him holding on to his own base of support, which frankly is more and more important in elections as the kind of proverbial electoral middle shrinks. You have to be able to hold on to your own base of support or you're done with as a politician. And so I don't think it should be a surprise. And now we get to see the possible political fallout from that.